Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jayam Vishnupad Paramahansa Puri Brajakacharya Ashtotar Satashri Srimad A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Samakunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Shri Navadvip Mayapur Dham Ki Jai Ganga Mayi Ki Jai Jamuna Mayi Ki Jai Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Tulsi Devi Ki Jai Samaveta Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. Gaur Premanande, Hari Hari Bol. Hare Krishna, everyone, and welcome to Sri Caitanya Charitamrita with His Holiness Jayadvaita Swami. It is Thursday, January 30th, 2025 in New York, and we're picking up with Chaitanya Charitamrita Adi Leela, chapter 12, and today starting with text number 11. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So this chapter is called The Expansions of Advaita Acharya and Gadadhar Pandit. And text number 11. Asarera name ihan nahi prayojan, Beda jani bare kari ekatra ganan. There is no need to name those who are useless. I have mentioned them only to distinguish them from the useful devotees. Prabhupada will elaborate in the purport to text 12. Dhanya rashi mape yaiche patna sahite, paschate patna udana samskara karite. Just one moment, please. So the translation, paddy is mixed with straw at first, and one must fan it to separate the paddy from the straw. Purport. The example given by Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami is very appropriate. In the case of the Gaudiya Math members, one can apply a similar process. There are many disciples of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, but to judge who is actually his disciple, to divide the useful from the useless, one must measure the activities of such disciples in executing the will of the spiritual master. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur tried his best to spread the cult of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to countries outside India. When he was present, he patronized the disciples to go outside India to preach the cult of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, but they were unsuccessful because within their minds, they were not actually serious about preaching his cult in foreign countries. They simply wanted to take credit for having gone to foreign lands and utilize this recognition in India by advertising themselves as repatriated preachers. Many swamis have adopted this hypocritical means of preaching for the last 80 years or more, but no one could preach the real cult of Krishna consciousness all over the world. They merely came back to India falsely advertising that they had converted all the foreigners to the ideas of Vedanta or Krishna consciousness, and then they collected funds in India and lived satisfied lives of material comfort. As one fans paddy to separate the real paddy from useless straw by accepting the criterion recommended by Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, one can very easily understand who is a genuine world preacher and who is useless. Om Jnana Timirantasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindubhya Evacha Patitanang Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Just one moment. So it occurred to me here there was an exchange between Prabhupada and a couple of his disciples that the disciples in question were finding it very difficult to continue with their service. They were living in India and they were considering going back to the United States. Prabhupada wanted them to stay in India. And at one point, Prabhupada just gave a wave of his hand and in a very disappointed tone said, "You just chant your 16 rounds, follow the 4 regulative principles, and do whatever you want to do." So by that, I understood that it's one thing to be a disciple in name, and another entirely to be a disciple in fact. Prabhupada in this purport says that, what is it? Within their minds, they were not actually serious about preaching his cult in foreign countries. They simply wanted to take credit for having gone to foreign lands, etc. I'm sure that Maharaj knows much more of the history in depth and in clarity than I do of the Gaudiya Math. But in my own limited understanding, it seems that Prabhupada himself very much imbibed the spirit of the order of Srila Bhakti Siddhanta to such a degree that he was willing to carry on the entire movement himself if need be. And he was keen to find people who shared that spirit and would be willing to help him in his own mission. And as we read in this purport, and we see in his other dealings with his disciples and other places, other purports, that to be a disciple is no small thing. I could say more, but I'd love to hear, Maharaj, if you have some things to say on this purport. I expect that you do.
Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namo Namaste Saraswati Deve Gaudavani Pracharini Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatani. Yeah, there's a lot more. One is that Prabhupada, my guess is that he's also taking a passing shot at one of the sannyasi who's was never part of the Gaudiya Math, who was teaching some sort of Vedanta and who came back to India with a big reputation for having converted all the Westerners to Vedanta. Although today, if you go to America, no one even knows who that person is, practically speaking. Totally, his impact on largely overstated, grossly overstated. So Indians, even today, they're surprised if you don't know who Swami such and such is. But that was never an important name to us. Apart from that, in Gaudiya Math, I think I mentioned the other day that in one sense this history is faded, and perhaps for the better. We don't have that much interest really. In Prabhupada's time, this was a raging controversy where godbrothers of Srila Prabhupada really wanted to take, they wanted to be the inheritors of the institution of Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, and they wanted to minimize Prabhupada. Sums it up. There was a Jubilee celebration or something for Gaudiya Math, however many years, and they published a souvenir booklet. And Prabhupada wrote a letter to the then Acharya saying that, you've mentioned the successful activities of Gaudiya Math in spreading the mission of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu all over the world. But why is it that you haven't mentioned anything about our humble activities? Because that was the booklet, nothing about Prabhupada, nothing about his activities, but the success of Gaudiya Math in spreading Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's movement all over the world. And Prabhupada said, you've mentioned such and such Maharaj and his successful preaching in London. If he was so successful, why did Guru Maharaj call him back? Don't you know the history? And it was a great dig because, of course, all of them knew the history of how Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur had spent considerably large sums of money to have a branch in England, and they hadn't accomplished anything. They just spent money. There was no substantial effect. So they called him back. The leading Swamiji was called back. And Prabhupada said, don't you know the history? If his preaching was so successful, why was he called back? But Prabhupada factually spread the teachings of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu all over the world. It's just a fact. That's just the way it is. So that has to be admitted. And today it is admitted. So in that sense, it's like an old controversy where we were trying to sort of raise the profile of Gaudiya Math relative to Srila Prabhupada by emphasizing their successes and ignoring his. But now that battle has long been won, and everyone recognizes, even those who may not be as appreciative, still they have to recognize that Prabhupada spread Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's movement all over the world. Hare Krishna. And and I should add, there are those who are very appreciative. That's okay.
Thank you, Maharaj. There's one particular point that Prabhupada makes here that I was wondering if you might be pleased to elaborate on or say something about. He says that to judge who is actually his disciple, to divide the useful from the useless, one must measure the activities of such disciples in executing the will of the spiritual master. So that, for me, really highlights the difference between being a disciple in name only and being an actual disciple, as Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur would say, one who makes the order of the spiritual master his life and soul.
I'd say it's largely a let's see what I want to say about that. Give me just a moment. We distinguish something valuable in relation to something that's not so valuable. It's a standard way of measuring. There's no need to mention the straw, but we mention the straw just so we can understand that the paddy is different from the straw. There is. You just sent me a video of back exercises, and the person who performs the exercises, he demonstrates how to do it, and then briefly he shows you how not to do it. You don't bend this way, you bend that way. So there's no need really of mentioning the way not to do it, except to emphasize that this is the way to do it. So in a similar the positive. So there's no need to mention the sons of Advaita Acharya who deviated. they're useless, they're unimportant. I talk about something useless, but they're mentioned just to highlight the useful. And sometimes even we see they make the useful stand out still more. It's been commented that demons like Kamsa and Agha and so on, they're, what do we care about them? But they made Krishna's valor stand out still more by their demonic activities. So that's also a contribution. So one could argue that the contribution of these people Prabhupada is mentioning is just that they make his contribution stand out some more. If they hadn't been there, we would have had still Prabhupada's contribution. But this way we have his contribution in contrast to what they did. So it's still more glorious and instructive.
Thank you so much, Maharaj. The other thing I noticed here is that Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami himself is bringing up this point about separating the paddy from the straw. And this was considerably earlier than our experience within the last 150 years of spreading Krishna consciousness. So this phenomenon is certainly not new. And it strengthens my own conviction that whenever I hear someone expressing their upsetness about something that they see some devotees doing and why are they doing it like this, I think of this statement, or I think of something like this statement, that really time will separate the paddy from the straw, and we'll see where the healthy branch of Caitanya, the Chaitanya tree, will grow. We'll see that over time, and other twigs may not be so healthy and may not flourish and luxuriantly adorned with leaves and fruits.
And there is a relationship to our own effort that's indicated here. It's not just that there's sort of what would you say, a chance bestowal of mercy on Prabhupada and so on. But he risked, he sacrificed, he dedicated himself in such a way that Krishna reciprocated. So it means we have to do something. Nimitta matra, Krishna says, just become my instrument. Not that you get the credit, I'll get the credit, or I'll give you the credit, actually. But you have to do something. You have to do something, you have to fight. Then you can have the credit. Prabhupada wasn't looking for credit, but so much credit goes to him, or belongs to him. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. There's some things in the chat. I just wanted to say one more thing, and if you'd like to speak on it further. Just, he says that they were unsuccessful, the disciples of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, because within their minds, they were not actually serious about preaching his cult. And as I'm going through the Lilamrita, that is the one aspect of Prabhupada's mission that is so very clear, and that he wanted to make clear to all of his followers, that if you want to be counted as a disciple in more than just name only, you must be serious about preaching. That is the component of your life as a devotee that must be strong.
Prabhupada valued that. He was less appreciative of those who wanted to go to Radha Kund or wherever and chant 64 rounds a day. So rather, he cautions in Krishna book and elsewhere about such aspirations. But he told us what we should do. We should try to spread the Krishna consciousness movement, try strenuously to spread the Krishna consciousness movement. And that would be more appreciated.
Josh.
Saraswati Masterji writes, Pranams Param Puja Maharaj and all the Vaishnavas. I'm wondering about how different devotees have varying capabilities and capacities when it comes to preaching and corresponding results. So can we judge their activities and success only in terms of numbers? This is how in material world workers are judged on basis of their output and production value. Sorry, but I may have misunderstood the point Srila Prabhupada is really making.
Well, of course, sincerity is valued so much, and Krishna says, Sidhya Siddhyo Samo Bhutva, one should be equal in success or failure. And we see great examples of devotees who failed, but were glorious. Jatayu is the one that usually comes to my mind. His attempt to stop Ramchandra, to stop Ravana, was a failure, but the attempt was nonetheless glorious. So the attempt itself was a success. The attempt itself was the success. That said, Prabhupada's definitely talking about numbers, measurable output. And Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur has made a similar statement that you can judge an advanced devotee, how many temples he's opened, how many devotees he's made. So Prabhupada was very much into numbers when Shrutadev Prabhu started the Sankirtan newsletter. Prabhupada appreciated it very much. It's just it's just numbers, names and numbers, how many books, who distributed. But Prabhupada, to the very end, was keenly interested in those numbers because they represented results. They represented, first of all, sincere endeavor, determination, enthusiasm, all of those Vaishnava qualities, and they represented results. And Prabhupada was into, as they say, results. He wanted to see results, and he took the results as a sign of success in dedication to the spiritual mastery. But we do have letters and so on from Prabhupada where he's encouraging people, even where there's no success. Don't worry that no one's coming. Don't worry, just carry on. So that's also there. That's also there. Also, success may differ according to where you are. If you go someplace to a hugely receptive area and hundreds of people come to your program, and it's a success. But if you go to some very difficult place where people are not at all inclined, if you get even one or two people, that may be a great success. Prabhupada went to Moscow, basically one or two people, that's all he got to even preach to. But he counted it as a success. And we see over time how that success has become manifest. So I hope that helps. There's material numbers are just material, but numbers of books distributed, numbers of devotees made, numbers of temples opened, these are spiritual, what's the word? Tabulation, spiritual numbers, spiritual results.
Murari Gupta Prabhu writes, Hare Krishna, the failure of others also shows that not anyone could have done it, which was an idea that was floated by some. Yes, Swamiji was successful, but anyone could have done it.
I don't think I need to repeat the story that Prabhupada told about Christopher Columbus. It's the stories. Do you know the story? Okay, then I'll repeat it. This was certainly going on in Prabhupada's time, Prabhupada went to America and, he did it, but anyone could have done it. And Prabhupada told the story of Christopher Columbus. He discovered America, and then he was sitting with some contemporaries upon his return to England, and they were saying something to that effect, that anyone could have done the same thing. After all, America was there. So Columbus took an egg and asked, "Can you stand this egg on its end?" And everyone tried. And so then Columbus took the egg and he gently tapped it so that the bottom became flat and stood it on its end. They said, well, that way anyone could have done it. Anyone could have done it. But Columbus did it and none of the others did. So that was Prabhupada's point, that the others were simply envious. Oh, anyone could have done it. But they could have done it, yes, but they didn't. There was one, actually Prabhupada's Samadhi ceremony, one of Prabhupada's godbrothers who paid Prabhupada a left-handed compliment by saying that Prabhupada had brought so many hippies to India. And he said that if he wanted, that he also could have had many disciples if he had been interested in, fishing for hippies. So I've thought about it many times, that actually his words were true, that he could have had many disciples if he'd had Prabhupada's characteristic of being willing to preach to anyone that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu sent, which he wasn't. He wanted college professors or something, and he got nothing. But Prabhupada was willing to take whoever came and turn them into very successful devotees, so that when he sent 3 householder couples to England, the headline came that what is it, Krishna's chant startles London. They made a huge splash in England, where a group of sannyasis hadn't accomplished anything. 3 householder couples successfully created a big impact. So and made so many devotees, and well, so much is there. So so this left-handed, I also could have had disciples but that was Prabhupada. He had the vision and the compassion and the determination that, all right, whatever Krishna sends me, let me do something. And what he's done has become wonderful. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Maharaj. Did we, Ross Prabhu, did we deal with everything in the chat so far?
Yes.
All right, thank you. Maharaj, do you have others in your immediate assembly who might like to read our next series of verses?
Sakha Acharya Nandana Ajanma Sevilatano Chaitanya Charana. Translation. A big branch of Advaita Acharya was his son Achyutananda. From the beginning of his life, he engaged in the service of the lotus feet of Lord Chaitanya. Next. Caitanya Koshanide Guru Shiva Bharati E Pitara Vakya Shuni Dukha Pailati. When Achyutananda heard from his father that Keshava Bharati was the spiritual master of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he was very unhappy. Jagat Guru te tumi kara aiche upadesha, tomara e upadesha nasta hoila desha. He told his father, your instruction that Keshava Bharati is the spiritual master of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu will spoil the entire country. चौदह भुवन रे गुरु Chaitanya Goswami, Tandra Guru, Anya Ekona, Shastra Nai. Lord Chaitanya, Mahaprabhu, is the spiritual master of the 14 worlds. But you say that someone else is his spiritual master? This is
The Bengali transcription is a little more difficult than Sanskrit, because the Sanskrit, each letter always stands for one sound and so on. But those ends with a tilde, as far as I remember from seeing the key, represent a sort of nasal sound. So it's not that it's pronounced as an N, even though it's represented by an N, just as our M with a dot is not usually pronounced as an M, but it's an sound. It's a kind of a nasal sound. So we hear Prabhupada, Chaitanya Gosai. The end is not really an N. Correct.
Panchama Vakshera Balaka, Kahe Siddhantera Sara, Sunya Paila Chacharya Santosha Apara. When Advaita Acharya heard this statement from his 5-year-old son, Achyutananda, he felt great satisfaction because of his conclusive judgment. Purport. Commenting on verse 13 through 16, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur gives an extensive description of the descendants of Advaita Acharya. The Chaitanya Bhagavata, Antya Khanda, chapter 1, states that Achyutananda was the eldest son of Advaita Acharya. The Sanskrit book Advaita Charita states Advaita Acharya Prabhu had 3 sons who were devotees of Lord Chaitanya. Their names were Achyuta, Krishna Mishra, and Gopala Dasa, and they were all born of the womb of his wife Sita Devi. Advaita Acharya also had 3 more sons, whose names were Balarama, Swarupa, and Jagadisha. Thus, there were 6 sons of Advaita Acharya. Among the 6 sons, three were strict followers of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and of these 3, Achyutananda was the eldest. Advaita Prabhu married in the beginning of the 15th century, Sakabda, late 15th century AD, when Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu wanted to visit the village of Ramakeli while going from Jagannath Puri to Vrindavan during the Sakabda years 1433 and 1434, AD 1511 and 1512. Achyutananda was only 5 years old. The Chaitanya Bhagavata, Antya Khanda, 4th chapter describes Achyutananda at that time as Panchavarsa Vayasha Madhura Digambara, only 5 years old and standing naked. Therefore, it is to be considered that Achyutananda was born sometime in the year 1428, AD 1506. Before the birth of Achyutananda, Advaita Prabhu's wife, Sita Devi, came to see Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu at his birth. Thus, it is not impossible that she had the other 3 sons by Advaita within the 21 years between 1407 and 1428 Sakabda, AD 1486 and 1507. In an unauthorized book of the name Sitadvaita Charita, published in Bengali in the unauthorized newspaper Nityananda Daini in 1792 Sakabda, 1870, it is mentioned that Achyutananda was a class friend of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. According to the Chaitanya Bhagavata, this statement is not at all valid. When Chaitanya Mahaprabhu accepted the renounced order of sannyas in the year 1431 Sakabda, AD 1509, he came to the house of Advaita Prabhu at Shantipura. At that time, as stated in the Chaitanya Bhagavata, Antya Khanda, chapter 1, Achyutananda was only 3 years old. The Chaitanya Bhagavata further states that the naked child, the son of Advaita Prabhu, immediately came and fell down at the lotus feet of Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. The Lord immediately took him on his lap. Although he was not very clean, having dust all over his body, Lord Chaitanya said, "My dear Achyuta, Advaita Acharya is my father, and thus we are brothers." Before Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu exhibited his spiritual forms during his residence at Navadvipa, he asked Sri Rama Pandita, Srivas Thakur's brother, to go to Shantipura and bring back Advaita Acharya. Achyutananda joined his father at that time. It is said, Advaita Ratanaya Achyutananda Nama Parama Balaka Seho Kande Abhirama. Achyutananda also joined in crying in transcendental bliss again when Lord Chaitanya beat Advaita Acharya for explaining Srimad Bhagavatam from an impersonalist viewpoint opposed to the principles of Bhakti Yoga. Achyutananda was also present. Therefore, all these incidents must have occurred only 2 or 3 years before Lord Chaitanya accepted the sannyas order. As mentioned above in the Chaitanya Bhagavata, Antya Khanda, chapter 1, it is stated that Achyutananda, the son of Advaita Acharya, offered his obeisances to the Lord. Therefore, it should be concluded that from the very beginning of his life, Achyutananda was a great devotee of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. There is no information that Achyutananda ever married, but he is described as the biggest branch of Advaita Acharya family. From a book named Sakha Nirnayamrita, it is understood that Achyutananda was a disciple of Gadadhar Pandit and that he took shelter of Lord Chaitanya in Jagannath Puri and engaged in devotional service. The Chaitanya Caritamrita Adila chapter 10 states that Achyutananda, the son of Advaita Acharya, lived in Jagannath Puri, taking shelter of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Gadadhara Pandit, in the last years of his life, also lived with Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu at Jagannath Puri. There is no doubt, therefore, that Achyutananda was a disciple of Pandita Gadadhara. In the accounts of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's dancing in front of the car during the Rath Yatra festival, Achyutananda's name is to be found many times. It is stated that in the party of Advaita Acharya from Shantipura, Achyutananda was dancing and others were singing. At that time, the boy was only 6 years old. Text 87 of the Gaura Ganodesha Deepika, compiled by Sri Kavi Karnapura, describes Achyutananda as a disciple of Gadadhar Pandit and a great and dear devotee of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. According to the opinion of some, he was an incarnation of Kartikeya, the son of Lord Shiva, and according to others, he was formerly the gopi named Achyuta. The Gaura Ganodesha Deepika supports both these opinions, and the book Narottama Vilasa, compiled by Sri Narahari Das, mentions Achyutananda's presence during the festival at Ketari. According to Sri Narahari Das, during the last days of his life, Achyutananda stayed in his house at Shantipura, but during the presence of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he lived at Jagannath Puri with Gadadhara Pandita.
Some comments? The one has to know that there's no difference between the associates of Krishna and the associates of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So, as Krishna is important, he's important with his devotees. The Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the glories and pastimes of Mahaprabhu were understood in relationship to his devotees. Otherwise, why do we care? All these involved descriptions, but it's because we want to know about Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's relation with others, his dealings with others. Yes. There was something else. And again, distinguishing between Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's or Advaita Prabhu's genuine followers and those who were useless. So these things can assume a historical importance now it's sometimes we find controversies in Chaitanya Charitamrita that have already been resolved long ago. So they're, say, of historical interest. But often we find that the same sort of patterns repeat themselves or spring up again in our more modern context. So it's useful for us to see. And again, the overarching principle is that those who follow the order of the spiritual master are genuinely useful, and those who deviate are useless. Also, the unauthorized statement in an unauthorized book in an unauthorized newspaper. So that again is clear that it's not that anything anyone writes about Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is to be accepted. Sometimes even in Mayapur we'll find some book which is not accepted by the Gaudiya Vaishnava Acharyas, but it's published and so it's sold in the bookstore, and there you have it. But we should know what literature is authentic or authoritative. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Maharaj. We could read on, or we could pause for kirtan at this point. The next verse is a sizable purport, and if we were to discuss, it might take some time. Do you have an on-site kirtan group, Maharaj?
Yes, we do. Who's leading?
As the kirtan is about to start, Saraswati Mata just mentions a parting comment. As a boy at age 5 seems to be of significance, as we hear of these great boys at age 5 became first-class devotees, Prahlad, Dhruva, Achyutananda, and Tapan Mishra's son. Socrates said words to the effect, "Give me a boy aged 7, and you have given me the man." Thank you, Mata. All right. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare,
Jai Om Vishnuvad Punamun Suparivrajacharya Stotra AC Bhakti Vedanta Swami Raj Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda Ki Jai Namacharya Sri Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaur Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai Sri Radha Krishna Gop Govinath Sham Kun Radha Kun Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Navadip Dham Ki Jai Jagannath Puri Ki Jai Ganga Mai Ki Jai Jamuna Mai Ki Jai Tulsi Devi Ki Jai Bhakti Devi Ki Jai All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled. Gaur Pramanande.
Hari Hari Bol. Thank you so much, Maharaj, and thank you to your on-site kirtan band. And thank you everyone for being here. Shri Caitanya Caritamrita Ki Jai. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. His Holiness Jayadvaita Swami Ki Jai.
Samaveta Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. Gaur Pramanande. Hari.
Krishna.